We do have a bit of an exhibition over here. There's posters, original posters from the strike, and there's a number of cuttings from what happened in the strike in this area, the support group, other things as well. We did have to do a bit of an edit, because what I should tell you as well is that we do have a vast archive of material from the strike in this area, and we've got £800 allocated by Unite the Union to set up a website to put this material on. It will take us some months, but that's the plan. There's a selection of posters as well. There are some posters of things that happened just after the strike as well. I'm sure some of us remember the bitter dispute with the Murdoch press as well, and the print unions that were faced a dreadful confrontation from Murdoch's press. Also in Lancashire there was a very bitter strike at Silent Night Beds near Bonaldswick, and we've got a poster from that as well. Many people probably don't know about that strike if they didn't live in the area at the time. A valiant battle by Liverpool City Council as well that was going on. Also struggles in South Africa and the beginnings of struggles to defend the NHS. And some of the other posters reflect that. There are a couple of posters that are taken direct from the support group at the time, and I think I'm right in saying that Bill Chalice, who was a county councillor at the time and a legendary figure in the strike, I think he actually personally produced those posters. And we've even got a couple of things over here from the collection point that was held when miners' families and miners' wives and partners were collecting money in Chorley in spite of the attitude of the council at the time. It was a Tory council at the time. Has to be said, I won't make an issue of it now, but I'm sure it will come out later on. It has to be said that when the support group was set up, several of us in the Labour Party fought hard to get that support group set up. The Labour group of councillors did oppose it and didn't actually participate in the support group. I just want to be truthful and accurate about this because that's the reality of it. But the Trades Council at the time did fully support it, and when the support group was set up at the end of May, we had a meeting in the Imperial Hotel in Chorley, and over 100 people attended that. And the NUM pickets from the area attended that, and that then set up the support group as a joint support group between the Labour Party delegates, Trades Council delegates, and the NUM activists who were pickets in the area. And then quite quickly after that, a women's support group was set up, and you can see the banner on my left, and that played I don't want to patronise any women in the area, but there's no question about it, that played an absolutely fundamental role in this area, and certainly as it did nationally. And later on you'll hear from Betty Cook and Heather Wood, who played very important leading roles in the women's movement in support of the strike nationally. Right, well I'm going to leave it there, and the next session Andy is the Secretary of the Trades Council, and this event is sponsored by the Trades Council and organised by Chorley Trade Union Council. So the next part session, we're going to have what is effectively a Q&A session, and we want to talk to or ask some basic questions of 3 miners who are active in the strike, 3 women, miners' wives, partners, families who were involved in it, and 3 of us are involved in the support group. And Andy's going to chair that session. So the next bit is the tricky bit of trying to persuade people to actually participate in this Q&A that we're going to do. And I think you've got some names, haven't you, Andy?
So we're running for this. We want to try and make it as open as possible, so we can take questions from the audience, but also people's members in the audience. Lots of people who went through it. But just so we're not kind of waiting necessarily for people to... We were going to invite a few people to the front to come and take these seats here to kind of lead us off on the discussion. So we're wondering if Arthur, Steve and Paul would come up and represent the miners.
We're not going to put you on the spot, believe me.
Don't want to, it's fine. David promised he was going to ask him. He's been very busy this morning. Come on, Paul. And then, for the wise partners and families, we're wondering if Julie Hamilton and Andrea Hallowell would come up, if you want to. Okay, all right. We're going to put you on that side, that's okay. And then from the support group, Ginny.
Yeah, the reason why we want to do this especially is for people who were too young to participate in the strike in this area. We particularly want you to hear the personal accounts of people who were. And we think that, you know, it's very important this event is built around the people locally who participated in the strike. So I know what Andy's probably going to ask you, but they'll all be straightforward questions. And the other thing I just want to say, I'm very pleased that Paul Kelly can join us, because whilst Arthur is from Parkside, the colliery in Newton Willows, Paul was a striking miner at Agecroft. And for those who don't know, Agecroft was the toughest pit to be a striker at in Lancashire. And the majority, as Paul will tell you, were scabs or Agecroft. And those who went on strike played a really heroic role. So, you know, really privileged that Paul's agreed to
Right, so we'll try at first do it without the microphone. We have got a mic if we need it, and especially if we need it from the audience. So I was going to start with you two, if that's okay, and just ask you first which colliery you worked at, and what your first memory of the strike was to kind of get us started. So we'll do Paul and then Arthur. So yeah. If you want to, yeah.
I hate using these things. Not natural. So yeah, I'm Paul Kelly, and as Andy said, I worked at Agecroft Colliery, which was in Salford. And basically I was born into the trade union movement. My father was a miner, my grandfather was a miner, all the family were miners. Even though I was from Salford, it was not exactly a pit village, you know, it's like 2 miles from Manchester. So we're still imbued in the NUM, because grown up into the NUM, trade unionism and everything. I was born in the street next to where Ewan McCall was born, so Salford's a pretty working class city, so that was my tradition. Working class, solid working class, and solid trade unionist. So when I went into the mines, I worked at Agecroft Colliery, and when the strike started, I wasn't interested in any ballots. I saw a picket line, and that was it. I joined the strike. It was bollocks to ballots, that's what we said at Agecroft. You don't cross picket lines, as simple as that. And it stays the same. You never cross a picket line, that's the 11th commandment of trade unionism. I'll say it today and I'll say it again. And that's the only way you win. And like I say, Agecroft, it wasn't exactly a pit village pit, you know, it was like it was a receiver pit basically for a lot of pits in Lancashire that had closed, so it wasn't like as close near to say like somewhere like Thurcroft or somewhere Dinnington in Yorkshire, something like that. So it's more like a mixed place. A lot of the people who worked at Agecroft were from Burnley, places like that. So we did have a tradition, obviously, in the 72, 74, 60, 69 strike, I don't remember that. And 72 I was on the picket line with my dad, and 74 picketing the power station, which is adjacent to the pit. And that was my sort of first idea of picketing when I was like, I'd whacked school at home, I left school and got good selling off. But I just felt that was the right thing to do. Of course, 84, it was my turn to stand up and be caged. And I thought, right, we're going to have this, and everyone will come out, because in the past everybody would come out in solidarity. We'd all stood together at the pit gates and at the power station, and we'd won obviously with that solidarity. 84 was a different kettle of fish. It was quite disappointing for me because it was very loose at Ashcroft. Basically, the union leadership was sold us out straight away before it started. You know, we had a meeting first off in the canteen. Some lads from Frickley came over. It was a 6-2 shift. I was just going on 6-2. Night shift had finished. We had 600 people in the canteen, and we all voted with our hands to strike. And that was good enough for me. We didn't need no ballots. Like I said, this is the first days of the strike, early March. And that was it. I thought, right, we're on strike, Lancashire on strike. And then you hear this nonsense about having a ballot. As I said, we'd had our ballot, and there was also 150,000 miners out on strike at the same time, picketing Nottingham and everywhere else. So that was enough for me, regardless of ballots. Of course, Ashcroft basically hung on for a ballot. The NUM leadership were appalling. It was in cahoots with the bosses, connived with the, I should say, right-wing leadership of the NUM in Lancashire, who wanted this ballot. To me, it was just an excuse not to strike. And it cost them, and it cost us in the long run. That solidarity was lost from 72-74, and I think that was one of the most upsetting things. And it was nothing worse for me to go into the pit, and sometimes I had to stand on my own at the pit gate, believe it or not, because it was pretty badly organised in Lancashire, we have to admit that, you know. And it was really dispiriting, but I thought, I don't give a damn about what you're going through them get. I'm not going to go through that picket line if there's not a picket there, because you're still working. It's as simple as that. We're on strike, and we're supporting other people in this country. You know, we're saving our jobs, we're saving our pits and our communities. The sickening things that they used to say was like, our pit's safe because we're not going on strike, you know, and going past waving money and blah, 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 and all this lot. And it was dispiriting, but you just stand up, you have to be counted. It's as simple as that. You've got to remember how we came about, what we are, and these people sold us out with tuppence at the end of the day. And what they're doing now, look at the state we're in now because of their cowardice, you know, and selfishness. We're in a right mess, aren't we? You know, and that's what it was all about, that strike. It wasn't just about that. As Arthur used to say, we'll roll back the years of Thatcherism. It's now decades of Thatcherism. You know, we've seen the result of what we said would happen. You know, we were right, Arthur was right, we were all right, everyone was right. And I know we were right, we won the argument, we've lost what we had. This is the thing, we can get it back, you've got to be optimistic. It's like mining, you know, you do a development and you get a dirt band, you carry on and get another, get a seam, you know, you have to keep going, you have to plough on. And that's what I've always tended to do. When I left the pit and went to voluntary work, I've always sort of believed in helping people and the collective. That's where Bryn brought up, and that's where we can have a decent civilised society. And that's what we had in the pit, which was more frustrating for me when people didn't stand together and come out and fight. You know, with that solidarity, like we'd had in 72 and 74, which I'd seen, we'd have got rid of the Tories, no doubt about it, regardless of what Labour Party wanted to do. The worker control the system, if we'd all stuck together, we'd have won that straight away. And like I say, it's bollocks to ballots, maintain your principles, and stand up and fight and be counted. Not just for you, for your grandchildren, for the people in the future. That's what it was all about, that strike. And I'm proud I did that. And I regret going back. I wouldn't have gone back. I would have stuck it out forever. You know, that's what it was all about. And I think we shouldn't have gone back. We should have stayed out, especially for the lads who'd been sacked, who'd been victimised, who'd been beaten. And I was at Orgreave, and I saw what happened at Orgreave. It was appalling. We want justice for Orgreave, we want justice for the miners, we want justice for the working class, and we'll get it if one day, I'm sure we'll get it. Let's keep fighting.
Hello, I'm very, very similar to Paul. I was born into a mining family. Very short of breath. My dad always said if I were new that it'd bring me back. But I started to work on the surface. And that was it. When I went to work the first morning, there was a picket there from Yorkshire. I don't go through picket lines. Never been involved in unions or anything like that. But no. So I went home. And I did that for 3 months. Never got involved, never went for a food parcel. But when my kids started to suffer, I thought, well, I need to do something here. I had to go back to work, which I'm not. Or we get involved and see what we can do. And that is where I started. We started, my wife, we started to go to food parcels. Then we got involved in raising money. And then Dave Beale, he got me into these union conferences, and we were in there talking. I had a better voice than them. But I never worked down the pit, I worked on the surface. But it was the same principle with Abraman, Reed Abraman. And Parasite was very, very similar to H-Con. There were people from all over. There weren't one set of people working there. It was like this area, Wigan area, St Helens area. And the management and part of the union worked on that. So that's where it all split up really. If we could have kept everyone together, we were pretty solid for a couple of 3 or 4 months at the outside. And then they started to drift back. But I'll be honest with you, my barometer was always with kids. If my kids suffered, I'd go back. I never did. And that Christmas, our kids had more presents than they had ever had. But they're all in Russian. Russian. This game, that's good. You know, but we got through it. 99% of people, if the wives had not been with them, they'd have had to go back. I was okay. But that's all I can say, really. Thanks. I can't talk a lot, but I'm very short of breath. But it's not paid dust, because I never went down the pit. Anything else? Anyone want to ask or answer?
We'll get you back up again. Right, so I'll just pass this along. I was going to ask the same question to you three. In terms of what your first memory of the strike was.
We're doing it together, girls.
Yeah.
We are the man as well. I worked on the district, so I did work 20 hours a week. But when I finished on the district, I changed the uniform and came back down to help in the food banks, collecting money on the markets, setting everything up, organising everything what was going on, wasn't there? We had the food parcels. Can you remember what were in the food parcels, girls? Meatballs.
I have been told actually. Therein lies the story. They wouldn't tell me.
Meatballs. And the scoundrels. Blame for them. Anyway, there was £5 of potatoes, bacon, sausage, brick cornflakes.
Because we were doing the dishes with the
Oh yeah, we're doing the dishes where everyone else was. Some veg, we got veg and everything, didn't we? And that was till after the week, butter and sugar.
That's right,
Sometimes we get tea, sometimes we get coffee. But the people, we used to make them a bag. And then sometimes we got vouchers, didn't we? They brought vouchers from the co-op.
Yeah.
We had vouchers from the co-op, didn't we?
yeah.
That were a bit extra for us. And then if you had children, you got points. Now, points meant prizes.
Yeah.
So I had 2 children at that time. And then we got so many points. So you could have extra beans or meatballs or different things, biscuits and things like that. So those points were extra. And I remember my mother-in-law, God rest her soul, they used to buy us £1 of mince a week, which made us a meal for 2 days. And my mum and dad lived north of Scotland, and they used to send me £5 down every now and again, because £5 was a lot of money then, you know, when you were working. But we just stayed together, didn't we? We had a pop group, we did a display here, the Miners' Wives, we sang a group, but we couldn't sing now. And all I know it was we had the Miners' Wives, we saw the stripe right through. We then for you and you and you. Yeah, so, you know, we did that. We did anything to help the community and help ourselves. And picket line. Yeah, I also can tell you that I have my phone tapped. As I said, I was a district nurse, and them days you actually got your work via the phone. They'd ring you with your work for the morning after. And as soon as I picked the phone up, it would click, 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 and we knew that we're being tapped, which was really against the law because I was giving delicate situation of patients I was seeing. So that were wrong. And then we used to have a code, they'd come when they were doing the picket buses. So it could be that we're going to Agecroft, but no, that meant Parkside. You know, they had a code which miners they were going to picket, didn't they? And then another time we had a van full of stuff because we'd so much from Russia, East Germany and all that. And you went down to South Wales, didn't you? And it was a blue van, which was bad because we went to this village in South Wales and asked this man where was the miners' situation, where were they? We've no idea, we've not got one. So then they went round the corner and asked another man. He said, no, I think it's to the Wayladder, to the side of the village. So they went there, and you went about 5 times, didn't you, after that man? And then he said, Luke, we've got stuff here for the miners. There's food, there's clothes, there's anything you want, toys and everything. He said, it's only there. And in the first place, it so they wouldn't. They thought they were police undercover. Isn't that right? So, yeah, and then we put miners up from Wales. We had 2 miners came and stayed at our house, although we got access to supplies then. But we had 2 miners from Wales.
They were on the point of being jailed,
Yeah.
so we sent them up here.
Yeah, so they came and stayed at our house. Do you remember anything like that?
I don't like this coffee, I know she
Yeah.
18 phones.
Yeah.
She's 42 now.
And then we did a march in London,
Yeah,
and we shut all the toilets. She only allowed to go to the toilets. I was looking at it. So, yeah.
I just finished work in the march that you were there in the mayor. Is it but I remember going to the food centre distributing parcels, remember going picketing, various different things, anything we could do. But obviously I had a baby, so I couldn't do a lot, but I did what I could.
Yeah.
We supported our husbands and that with me, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Supported.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Don't think you off the hook because we have got some follow-up questions. But one thing that you were all talking about there was that sort of material solidarity that people were able to offer. So I just wanted to throw it over now to those of you that were organising in the support committee and just ask you that sort of first question of what's your first memory of the strike, and then how really did you get that support group off the ground really? So are we all right to start with you, Keith? Is that yeah? Yeah.
Right, first of all, I wasn't expecting to be sat at the front row. I can't believe it's 40 years ago. I'm 71 now, so I was 31 at the time. I was a member of the Labour Party, trade unionist, and we just knew the miners had to be supported. Not everybody in the Labour Party shared that view. One of my memories that's just come back to me now with what Dave said earlier on was in the Chorley Council chamber. If memory serves me right, they wanted permission to have a collection in the street. And I just remember being in the council chamber, there was a vote, and if my memory serves me right, it went to the casting vote of the chairman, that was Jeff Simons. So we didn't get what we wanted. I think that's, the memory I've got. My other memories are going down on the picket line at Ellerbeck. Remember one of my sons with me, probably about 8 or 9 years old at the time. One of the miners there gave him a flat cap, which he used to wear. Yeah, things like that really. But just no doubt that it was the right thing to do. The miners had to be supported.
Yeah.
And I wish we could have done more, and I wish more people could have shared the view that we did at the time. But, and in recent years, as I've met other people, just on holiday a few months ago, I met a miner from the northeast. So he was telling me where he used to work, and he was saying about the Ballard, and yeah, he told me things that I didn't know then. He compared the miners in Nottingham, who were good working conditions, compared to the North East, where they were, you know, under the sea. And you could see from that, I never thought about why there would be such a diversity amongst the mines, to when, you know, like the support for the strike. Yeah, so that's me for now, I think.
Thanks, Steve. Ginny, he didn't know that we were going to ask her to do this.
I'm not good at speaking.
Yeah.
Go on, Ginny.
What
Go on, Ginny.
I'd say was something that happened how do you remember it started?
Well,
and what made you get involved, I think.
I'm not used to speaking
Yeah.
publicly, that's the thing. I was a union rep, I was a nurse up at the hospital, Chorley Hospital. So as a trade unionist, I naturally got involved, and of course Dave got me involved as well, and his late wife Joan, you know. And so it just seemed an obvious thing to do as a trade unionist to help. And I thought it was a privilege actually to get involved, really. It just seemed the right thing to do. I don't think, you know, I mean, I'm just happy that I managed to contribute something. It was only a small contribution, but it was certainly something that I feel proud that I took part in, especially going down to London to the march, you know. I mean, I found that very moving, and I remember having my photographs taken with Tony Benn, and that was, but I've lost that, unfortunately. But it was just a privilege to actually support what was happening, you know, to the trade unions, and going around and seeing just how little support we even got from the other trade unions at the time, you know, and especially the leader at the time of the TUC. And of course we had some wonderful speakers, you know, that we got, you know, so it was just, and everybody, well, I won't go on because I'm just rattling now. I just say thank you for letting me get involved, really, and I enjoyed my time when we had in the labour rooms, you know, chatting to everybody, and it was fun, although it was, and I just couldn't add my daughter's first word, because I used to push her in a buggy, and, you know, any demonstrations we had locally, and her first words were, Maggie, 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 out.
Yeah, you can walk in. Of course, that got shut down straight away nearly after the strike, because they knew there was no fight there. You know, that's what struck out my mind, is the pure selfishness of these people. And we knew what they'd get, you know, and that really struck out. But I did quite a bit of picketing. I mean, I had a lot of personal issues at the time as well. I mean, fortunately, in one way, my mother-in-law ran Salford Women's Refuge, and I knew quite a few good local, like Nick Arneston, who was a Communist Party Northern Industrial Reporter, so I got some good support. I mean, the Labour Party was actually quite good in Salford. If you remember Hazel Blaze, she was the solicitor at the time. She gave permission for street collections, and George Stapp at the back over there, he set up the miners' support group that was ended up teaming with Merton, wasn't it, George, in the North East? So you'd had that link that was pretty good. So, but the Labour Party were good. The individuals were quite good. I mean, when you get to the Kinnocks of this world, and you know, scum like that, it's a different kettle of fish. But it was quite good on the ground, and you know, the collections quite well. So we got pretty well supported. Terry Lewis, the MP for Eccles, was quite good. He put a Christmas party on for the kids and give us food and everything. So, like I say, Jim Arneston is great. He used to give me chocolate every week. He's like a little kid, you know, box of chocolates. And so, and the women at the refuge, don't forget, these women had been battered. They were living dire straits. They used to get money to give to us, and I just couldn't take it off them. You know, these were people who had been hammered on, you know, domestic abuse, and they were fantastic, and that really kept it going. And it was really heartbreaking, you know, to see all the great goodwill. It was a rank and file that really kept it going. Let's face it, it was obviously the women. If it wouldn't been for the women, there's no way it would have gone as long as it could. It couldn't have happened. It's as simple as that. I mean, it's an absolute tribute to the women, what they did, you know. It really is, you know, without them. And the strength of the picket lines, I mean, the bravery was showed at the So I saw the women going straight in. I went to Vicar Show once, and it was a time when the police had actually thrown a woman out of a wheelchair in her own front garden onto the floor. The women were going crazy about that, you know, we're quite rightly, you know what I mean? But the men were at the back, and the women thought, obviously, we'd have got arrested and lost our jobs, so we were being saved in that way as well. They were standing up for us, which is absolutely fantastic thing to do. And if I wish we'd have that solidarity, like Arthur said, if we'd have all joined together, if you've got, you know, it's got it on the banners, hasn't it? We all walk under the banner, even Labour Party members walk under that banner, and it's got unity is strength. You know, it's unity is strength, and you think back to 72 and 74, that solidarity, we had them out in weeks. It didn't take a year, you know, if we'd have all stuck together. We know why we didn't, we know about the infiltration, we know about the Maripide, we know about the Ridley plan and what Thatcher did, but people knew better, and they should have stood up and realised what was going on, and he chose not to. They blindsided it, and it's just appalls me that. But as regards to the violence that went on the picket line, it did not come from the miners, I'll tell you that for sure, and it did not come from the miners at Hargreave either. When I was at Hargreave, I was with John Alice last year, the photographer, and he showed me the place where he took the picture of Leslie Bolton when she got assaulted, nearly murdered. If that copper had hit her, he actually swung that baton. It didn't just look, the picture looks like it stuck, doesn't it? He actually swung it. Unfortunately, she was pulled in and stopped from being hit by the baton. It would have killed her. But I was at Hargreave at the time. I was just near there where I'd escaped from the police after running away. I fell right over, I banged myself, but I got in this yard. I remember seeing the police running about, they were like demented, but they were enjoying it. They actually enjoyed what they were doing. They were running about with glee on their faces, looking for someone to hit. Fortunately, it was in a pallet yard in the fence, and they couldn't get at us. And they were furious, absolutely. They would have killed us. What amazes me, no one died that day. I mean, it's just unbelievable. No one died, but they were out to kill someone. That was the thing at the end of the day. So don't talk to me about, you know, picket line violence, because the truth should come out one day with the Hargreave Truth and Justice campaign. And what annoys me, every one of them bastards were involved in Hillsborough as well. That set the precedent. That's the thing, and he's still not apologised for that. They're all retired on big pensions, and people did die on that strike. But let's forget that Davy Jones and Joe Green, miners died, miners' families were really hurt on that strike. It's wrecked the community, it's wrecked the country. You know, it's disgusting. It should never be forgiven and never be forgotten. Okay.
So just coming back to you, don't look at me like that, Ian. Yeah. So it's that same question really about what was the effect on the family, and what do you remember about kind of picketing and things like that, any of the activity that you can do. So I was going to start with yourself, I don't know your name, sorry. Andrew. Oh, thank you, Andrew. So I was going to start with you because you got away with it last time. Is that all right?
That's what I remember about picketing. I did go picketing a couple of times. I went to Ellerbeck, I went to Parsonage. I remember sneaking out at house at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I can't even remember who picked me up now. It could have been you, Arthur, I'm not sure. We just like sneaked out into a man's car, what turned up in front of the house, and like your husband and children as well. Yeah, we sort of did it round in a rota in a way. I remember going to London on a march there, the miners. That went up at Trafalgar Square, didn't it? And one of the things that always sticks with me is it were like, we were walking up this big long road, I can't even remember what it called. Whitehall. And it was so packed and so busy, and you just had to keep going. And I remember Arthur being behind me saying, Andrea, just keep walking, do not stop, you're going to get crushed. Just keep walking, ignore the policeman, just keep going. And I was like, oh my God, what have I ended up at? But we did it, and I'm actually proud to say that I actually went and got involved. I can't say I actually saw any violence, I never did, probably because I was cringing at back. But what impact did it have on my family? I don't know, it just became a way of life, to be honest with you.
We were lucky. My mum paid our mortgage because we'd only just moved into that house, bought that house 6 months ago. So we were very, very lucky that way. Rest of the time we were skin, but we all managed to pull together. We went to, it wasn't a soup kitchen, was it? It was labour rooms, and made up bags of food and all sorts. And, meatballs, there were always tins of meatballs. I hated meatballs, give them all to Anne. It was like,
We got friendships.
in a way, that was, it made friendships for life really, didn't it? And it was our way of life. We were poor, but everybody else that you associated with was poor. So it was okay. It was hard, but in some ways it was okay, and we had some laughs, and we had some cries, and yeah, I wouldn't go back and change it now. It just, I think it's what made us really, in the end. Yeah, me and Anne learned to have a local country manor on a Friday night. That was all we could afford, eh? Little more page, yeah. But, in fact, I said to my son on the last Saturday that I was coming here, and I went, do you remember this call? Do you remember that call? And he was like, Mum, I was 4. I thought, oh. And you know, I don't know why, I just expected him to remember it, because I think because we remember it so well, I'd forgotten that they were actually so small. So, in some ways, it didn't affect the children, but... And I don't think they really missed out on very much, because when it was Christmas and stuff, they got so much stuff given them. What?
From Russia.
From Russia. Yeah. It's like funny because this week I was thinking to myself and I'm thinking about like silly things what stick in your mind. Like remember Arthur had corned beef and tomato sauce sandwiches on that coach to London. Do you remember? And me and Valdorba were like, ugh. And that's always stuck with me. And I was thinking, oh, what a funny thing. And then, like, who read him out losing his shoes? And then miners from Wales took him, didn't they? Well, he was dressed up in Chorley Market as Father Christmas. And when he come back, these Wales miners had took his shoes. Not intentionally, but it's like daft things like that what have stuck with me more than trauma, I think. That's it.
I didn't go picketing a lot, but I went local, Parkside, Goulburn, but the one that sticks in my mind the most, I went to Bold one morning, and there were a group of us women, and I remember being chased by the police on horseback, and it was the most frightening thing. But I don't know, I made it off that field because I had boots and I couldn't run. But I managed to get off, but that's the one thing what sticks with me about picketing. I saw it there, but the other ones I didn't, so...
So I just wanted to ask particularly you two this one, and obviously the bit that we're trying to come to terms with today a little bit is that people went back to work and the strike ended and it was a loss. I wondered if you could say what happened at your collieries after the strike, what was kind of the feeling then, obviously they're not there now, are they, and kind of how that came about really. So I thought I'd do Paul first and then Alf with this one as well.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, first of all, I stayed off a week later than I should have gone back. I went back after 53 weeks instead of 52 or something like that, out of pure stuff you, one way or another. And when I went back, I had to see the personnel manager, who's called Davis. So he's like a little Tory sorag anyway, I'd had him before, I never got on with him. Right, he goes blah blah blah, and, you know, he could have wanted it, and I was like, yeah. He said, I could have you sacked, you know. I said, what for? He says, absenteeism. You've been off a week longer than you should have done. I said, I've been off a year, you clown. You know, that sort of man, and I started raving on, but said, you can F your job, I'm not interested already, I just go, well, stuff it, I don't want to work with these bastards anyway, half of them, you know what I mean? Anyway, I just had arrived and the manager was next door, Mr. Jennings, and he come running in. He was a decent bloke actually, and he took me out, sat me down, he says, come back when you're ready in a couple of days, and he put me back on, went back in. And I got a bit of stick, I mean, you know, but I was with a team that had been on strike, so it was good really. I was on the rip at the time, and we were left to ourselves, left to our own devices. They looked shamefully at us all, them that heard words. I remember some smart ass had written at the bottom of the pit bottom and round, you out with empty heads and you come back with empty pockets. You know, we still had our pride, didn't we? We did the right thing. That's the way we used to do it. You know. But, like I say, the attitude was appalling. And they said, well, our pit's safe now because we were good boys, type of thing. I mean, they might have got ourselves another 6 years out of it, but was it worth it? Because it went anyway, didn't it? They all went. It went in a week, our pit. 1 week, because allegedly it was unproductive. It wasn't, it was productive. It was next to a power station. It could have gone for a further 60 years or 60 years of coal, although it just developed a new face. It was ready to go, and they just showed it was Butch at the time, Butch, and they had a ballot, of course. They had their ballot then. Nobody likes having a ballot. And when they had that ballot, what did they do? They voted to shut the pit, the miserable old rats. And of course, the young ones didn't, because we wanted it was a tough job, and we know that. It was an hard job, it was brutal sometimes. You were against all the elements, but it was a worthwhile job, and you didn't have to do it if you didn't want to do it. Let's face it, there were other options at the time. We just, the minority voted to keep it open. And I felt awful taking redundancy money. In fact, I didn't take the redundancy money. I did it by default. I took it, but I gave it to my wife. I said, do what you want with it. I don't want to touch that. I got about £14,000. I thought, I don't want to touch that. And I didn't as best I could, because I felt like I'd sold out. I felt awful. And I felt awful that the pit went, because we just knew the consequences. It was quite depressing, but I was proud about the strike. And all the what struck me, they were all cheering when the pit shot all these bastards. You know, and I just thought, you just never get it, did they? Not worth a light. And during the strike, the production figures for Aircraft were a record production figures, which is more annoying. They'd actually worked harder during the strike to keep the bleeding strike undermined. Unbelievable. Anyway, I'll have that rest on that.
Like I said earlier, I worked on the surface. I was a shunting engine, mainline driver. And we should have known what were coming off. For 12 months before that strike, I could have lived in that walker. They were begging us to work day, night, day, night, day, night. The coal going to them power stations was unbelievable. And us like dads, oh, look at this. You know, doubling our wages every week. Good money. Never saw my wife with kids. We were living in them walkers. Went back to work on the last day. They'd done away with my job. And the British Railways, when they was out, their union was out, we refused to take the coal up into the sidings in case they had scabs who would take the coal to the power station. We refused to stop that coal. When we went back, they reversed the system and the British Rail were taking the coal out to the power stations. Their unions were actually broke us. That was the NUR. And we backed them for years. You know, every time they was out, we refused to put coal in the sidings in case there were scabs. But when we came out, they reversed the system at the colliery, as they could take the coal out without our engine. So then I went back, there was about 50-50 on the surface, about 50% worked, 50% didn't. So we was put all like corralled into a little building, just, you know, sparing coal. I never used a spare for years. Sparing coal from what had fell off, you know, belts and things like that, just to keep us away from everybody else. That went on for 2 or 3 weeks. And then eventually they decided, as I had the skills, to be retrained to be a crane driver. So they retrained me to be a crane driver, which is the best thing you ever did. I finished up with a good job for 20 years at the actual crane hire. Because there were 6 of us who drove cranes and diggers, and we were the first ones they privatised. We could either take our money and move, like which I did. We could stay on our own job, and we were losing about £70 a week. I was losing about £70 a week on the hours I did. And I lost my call, which was a big item, with a wife and 2 kids. I'd lose my call, I'd lose my travelling money. What that meant, like they used to pick me up in a bus, NUM and NCB, and take me to side. I couldn't get on that bus then because I was a contractor. So I'd have to make my own way down to Newton Willows every day, there and back, losing £70 on my wages, plus my call. So I moved. Well, there were 1 or 2 lads who lived locally. They went private, they went working at Tomlinson and went to somebody. And within 12 months, the people shut. So all they did, they dropped the money for 12 months. They got the redundancy like I did, but they got very little money for 12 months. And I blame them, I laugh at them, I got out, I got a good job. You know, so, well, like I said, the NUL, they was doing badly. We stuck by then, they'd had quite a few strikes just before our strike, and we never put a wagon of coal in the side. We said, no, we're not, just in case there was cab riders on the railway, we won't put the coal there for them to take. And I went back to work, they were taking the coal to the power station. Now, Mick Lynch comes on television, he seemed like a good fella. Probably if he'd have been in charge, that it wouldn't have happened, but it did happen then.
We are going to wrap up in a minute. I've just got one last question for everybody. But before we do that, is there anybody in the audience who'd like to ask anything or share any stories? Go on, Fred. Do you want the mic?
No, I just think. So we've had, last year we had a wave strike action. It was the RMT going out first. Really gave confidence to people. So then the posters to go out, the nurses to go out, the teachers to go out, making wins, going out and going on strike action. But we didn't face somebody on your phone and the clicking noise going on. As I spoke to you, I've been on your couch and you told me the impact of the police listening to you. We didn't face people wielding at you to hit you on. We didn't face the might of the state almost sounded like it was just warfare against you. And you're out on your own. I want to know, first of all, how to actually go on strike and to build that solidarity, how you did that when you were facing it out on your own, not for 2 weeks, not for 3 weeks, but for a year, how you built the strength to do that and sustain it. It's inspiration for us, but your stories of how you did it in your workplaces, in your communities, fascinating to just hear a bit more about the impact of it and how you managed to galvanise against that.
What I did, like I said, I started off a very, very reluctant striker, but my family was mining through and through. So, like Paul said, it's the 11th commandment. Even when I was working at Amesford, I would not cross the picket line. So, I started writing no picket line I never ever run across. So I just used to go home, I was very, very reluctant. But I did it. So there was no question in my mind to go through that picket line. There's a picket line there, it's an official picket line, there's no question I will go through it. Even now, if there's somebody outside of Morrison's, I will not walk through Morrison's picket line. But, as the strike went on, I got stronger. And like I said, my barometer were my kids. If my kids suffered, then I'd have something to think about. But my wife suffered my kids. I was out most mornings very early, like I said, very, very early. I was getting up earlier than when I was going to work. And we went picketing, we got 2 slices of toast and a boiled egg. That was you got your breakfast. At the time I smoked, and I smoked pretty heavy. I had to knock the cigarettes down, I had to go on roll-ups. But as the strike went on, a lot of people went back. It just made me stronger. I mean, Dave, he used to get me to go around to, well, a few, about 4 or 5 of us used to go around to these courses. And we used to have collections and bring it all back. You know, so we were getting geared to it. We you know, like we didn't go that way, we went that way. And that's the way you have to do it. You know, it's how to sink or bloody swim, isn't it? So what do? You swim. You know, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, you sink or swim. But I had great support from Salford Women's Aid for a start. I had a really good network. And like I say, it wasn't particularly a pit village age cross, so we had a lot more support than some of the isolated places, where there's a lot less to go around, should I say. But like I say, what made me stick it, I just dog it. I'd say when you go in a pit, the first thing you learn is discipline. Yeah, discipline, and you have to be straight and focused. And I just thought, right, I'm on a development here, I'm on a rip, and I'm going to go to the bleeding end at the end of the day. I'm not going to give in. And I got angry. Well, you did get angry, didn't you? Because you seen what was going on, you saw what was going on. I did a bit of picking as I could. My wife was very unwell at the time, she was getting really unwell, so I had a lot of problems with my wife, which we all have, you know, we all have domestic problems as well as, you know, that's normal life, isn't it? But I went for quite a few pickets because I met a few people in Yorkshire, I've gone to a few pickets, and like I say, every picket just made you even more angry, the way the police were behaving, I feel that. I mean, still, I just want revenge today. Never mind forgive and forget, I want revenge for what them bastards did to us, because they've got away with it at the end of the day, and they're still doing it now, like Arthur said. And the thing about the strikes last year, and you say about the strike, we didn't get beat up at the end of the day. You can only win strikes if you do it together. That was guerrilla warfare last year, what the unions did, and it wasn't good enough. There was people crossing picket lines when people allegedly weren't on strike that day. What nonsense, what absolute nonsense to say. We're our unions not out today, but you've got a union picket line there on strike and they're going into work. Rubbish. If you don't get that solidarity back, you're going to lose. One out, all out. It's as simple as that. That's the way you've got to think. You've got to be determined, you've got to be dogged, you've got to say, we're going to win. And we did win at the end of the day, that strike. We won because we took part and we stood up and we were counted. That's winning as far as I'm concerned.
Thanks for giving me the mic. My brother-in-law Pete was one of the striking miners who came from South Wales to here. Sadly, Pete passed recently, but I promised my sister and my niece and nephews that I'd come here and thank you for all the support that you gave, for that solidarity that was shown right across the whole of Britain, by the miners, by the supporters, and by everybody who said something. And you know, it's so good to hear you speak, because Pete, after the strike, although I knew him for years, never said a word about what he'd been through. And I think it's so tremendous to hear you tell your tales today, because the next generation of trade unionists need to know what you went through, and also to make sure they're not just memories of the past, but they're lessons for the future. Because I didn't connect Pete with here until Dave, who I know through the Socialist Party, because I know Dave keeps things, showed me all these letters that Pete had written that Dave still got on his file. And there's one thing, I'm going to have to put my glasses on because the 40 years has gone by. But one thing that Pete wrote in a letter that he left with Dave, he says, so he's writing this in February '85, one of the government's commitments is to weakening trade unions. But what use is a thriving economy to most of the population if we are not able to combine effectively to claim a share of the wealth in the form of good pay and working conditions? And 40 years on, they have spent those 40 years grabbing the wealth from working class people and giving it to the wealthy. So I think the main lessons we've got to learn is that we're going to have a fight to make sure we grab it off the wealthy and bring it back to the people who actually make it themselves. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. So I'm just going to finish with one question to everybody. We'll start with you three, if that's okay. And the question is, how did the strike change you? So what is its legacy for you personally, and what kind of lessons did you take away from it? So do we mind the work start with you, Keith? Is it?
Start with Dave.
Okay. On the spot, Dave.
How did it change me? Well, that's a good one, really, because I think at the start of the strike, I was already a union rep. I'm just trying to think. Being a branch secretary, I worked as a TUC tutor, as I said, for training stewards in a whole number of workplaces in this area. I mean, the trouble is with that, just to say, a lot of the workplaces I trained stewards for are now shut. But really honest, it's not my fault. But how did the strike change me? I mean, really, it really was an utter inspiration. And I think this point can't be lost about the extent to which young miners and their wives and families fought. This was, I mean, on the exhibition up here, there's I don't know whether you've seen it, but it describes the strike as a civil war without guns. And that comes from a book that the Socialist Party have reprinted as for sale here. But that isn't the reason why I've really put it up there. It's just that I think that's the best description of the strike that I've seen. And yet it was a civil war without guns, and yet miners and their wives and families fought it for 12 months. And it honestly, looking at the detail of what went on just in this area, it genuinely convinced me beyond a shadow of a doubt that ordinary working people can run this society instead of the crooks and villains that we see now in government, and quite frankly the crooks and villains that run many big multinational companies. So it really made my trade union commitment and my socialist politics absolutely entrenched. And I wouldn't hesitate. I mean, there are one or two things that I wish I'd done during the strike that I didn't. But I wouldn't hesitate to do it all over again. The things I think I wish I'd done was that those who were about in this area will know about this, but the Elabet, which was a few people mentioned, which was